Certainty becomes dangerous the moment it promises more than it can deliver. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to show you how philosophy reacts when confidence itself becomes a source of unrest. After the Stoics, reason stands tall, judgment is trained, virtue is secured, inner freedom claims independence from fate, and yet something begins to crack. If reason must judge everything, how can it ever be sure it has judged rightly? If peace depends on correct assent, what happens when arguments multiply and no conclusion settles without resistance? The skeptics enter at this point, not as destroyers of thought, but as doctors of its excess. They notice that disagreement is not an accident of poor thinking. It is persistent, skilled, and unresolved. For every claim, an equal counterclaim appears. For every proof, a rival proof stands ready. The effort to secure certainty begins to produce the very anxiety it hoped to cure. Minds strain, loyalties harden, tranquility slips further away. This episode begins with a radical suggestion. Perhaps peace does not require correct judgment at all. Perhaps wisdom lies not in choosing the right belief, but in refusing to choose where reasons fail to compel. The skeptics do not deny reality. They suspend assent. They step back from the demand to decide, and in doing so, they seek a different kind of freedom. Here, philosophy loosens its grip, not to fall into chaos, but to let the soul rest. The Stoa fills each day with argument. Teachers speak as if truth were a prize to be claimed. Students gather as if victory were possible. Timon listens from the edge, saying little. He has heard the Stoics promise certainty through reason. The Epicureans promise peace through clarity. The Platonists promise order through assent. Each school speaks with confidence. Each claims release from confusion. Yet none prevents the next argument from rising the moment a claim is made. Over time, Timon notices what others ignore. For every assertion delivered with conviction, an equally persuasive counter-argument appears. What one teacher proves, another dismantles. Evidence shifts with perspective. Customs contradict each other from city to city. Even the senses refuse to agree. A stick looks bent in water, straight in air. What feels warm to one hand feels cold to the other. If judgment is always followed by dispute, he wonders, why treat judgment as necessary at all? Scepticism teaches him a different discipline. Instead of forcing assent, he withholds it. Epoché is not ignorance, but restraint. Timon does not deny that things appear as they do. He denies only that appearances must be declared true or false in themselves. When judgment is suspended, the pressure to defend a position falls away. The mind stops bracing for attack. Anxiety, he realizes, feeds less on uncertainty than on the demand for certainty. This practice reshapes daily life. When praised, he neither inflates himself nor suspects hidden intent. When blamed, he examines the claim without granting it final authority. He follows customs without treating them as absolute, obeys laws without calling them sacred. listens to doctrines without choosing sides. Action continues, but attachment loosens. Life remains practical, yet flexible, free from the rigidity that turns belief into burden. Seen from above, the consequence is quiet but decisive. By suspending judgment, skepticism removes one of the deepest sources of disturbance, the insistence that one's view must be right. Tranquility emerges not from possessing truth, but from releasing the need to secure it. Epoché becomes a way of stepping out of the inner courtroom, where every impression demands a verdict. As evening settles and the debates thin, Timon walks away without resolution. He feels no lack. In not deciding, he has found rest. In the late afternoon, as heat softens and arguments sharpen, Myron sits among listeners who already know what they believe. Each speaker rises with certainty, armed with definitions, proofs, and conclusions rehearsed until they feel immovable. Approval or hostility follows at once, depending on which banner is raised. Myron notices how quickly conviction stiffens into defense. What begins as an idea soon behaves like property. Skepticism trains him to watch this shift closely. Dogmatism, he learns, is not the holding of belief, but the refusal to examine it. The dogmatist does not merely assert a view, he becomes it. To question the claim is to threaten the person. From this stance, conversation turns into combat. Evidence is gathered to protect, not to test. Doubt is treated as weakness. Certainty hardens into armor that cannot be removed without fear. Myron tests this insight in dialogue. When a Stoic insists that reason reveals the order of the cosmos, Myron asks how reason avoids error when senses mislead and cultures disagree. When a Platonist speaks of eternal forms, Myron asks how access to them is secured without assumption. Each reply tightens. Arguments loop back to their starting points. What is defended is not clarity, but stability. Dogmatism shows itself as a hunger for ground where none can be proven secure. This critique reshapes Myron's conduct. He no longer feels compelled to correct others or replace one certainty with another. Instead, he asks questions that expose hidden premises. He listens for where confidence outruns evidence. When his own views are challenged, he notices the reflex to resist and lets it pass. By refusing to fuse opinion with identity, he keeps flexibility without falling into paralysis. Seen from above, the ethical force becomes clear. Skepticism does not attack belief as such, but the claim to finality. Dogmatism disturbs because it ties peace to being right. By loosening that bond, skepticism opens a space where disagreement need not become hostility, and uncertainty need not produce fear. As the crowd disperses, many leave confirmed and armored. Myron leaves lighter. He carries no doctrine to defend, and therefore no enemy to defeat. At dawn, when light softens the edges of buildings and the world has not yet settled into definition, Sextus walks the road outside the city. In this hour, shapes deceive easily. A distant figure may be a person or a tree. A sound may belong to wind or movement. Sextus notices how quickly the mind completes what the senses only suggest. Certainty arrives before verification, as if the soul dislikes waiting. Skepticism begins from this ordinary experience. What humans know comes through faculties that disagree, shift, and fail. Sight contradicts touch. Memory reshapes what has passed. Reason builds conclusions on assumptions it cannot justify without turning in circles. Sextus does not deny that the world appears in certain ways. He doubts only that appearance grants access to how things are in themselves. Between object and judgment lies a gap that cannot be closed by effort alone. He tests this limit again and again. Customs that feel natural in one city appear absurd in another. Arguments that persuade one generation collapse in the next. Even careful explanations change shape as new observations intervene. If knowledge were secure, it would not require constant revision. What persists instead is confidence, not certainty. Sextus learns to keep these apart. This recognition reshapes his relation to truth claims. He accepts that things appear hot or cold, just or unjust, relative to perspective and condition. He refuses to elevate these appearances into final statements about reality. Action continues without metaphysical commitment. Sextus eats when hungry, avoids danger, follows laws, and speaks with care, all without claiming ultimate knowledge. Life proceeds without foundations declared absolute. Seen from above, the consequence is precise. By recognizing the limits of human knowledge, skepticism loosens the demand for final answers. Wisdom shifts from possession to posture. Knowing where certainty ends proves more valuable than insisting where it begins. Tranquility arises not from mastering reality, but from releasing the demand to do so. As the sun rises fully and outlines sharpen, Sextus turns back toward the city. The world has not become clearer. He has simply stopped requiring that it must be.
By the end of this chapter, wisdom no longer appears as certainty achieved. It appears as tension released. What skepticism gains is lightness. By refusing to force judgment where reasons do not compel, it loosens the grip of belief on the soul. Anxiety fades when the need to be right dissolves. Tranquility emerges not from answers secured, but from the freedom to live without final verdicts. Action continues, life remains practical. What disappears is the inner court where every thought demands defense. What is lost is metaphysical ambition. Skepticism offers no picture of reality as a whole, no hierarchy of being, no promise that reason can mirror the structure of the cosmos. For those who long for meaning anchored beyond appearance, suspension can feel thin. Peace is purchased at the price of silence about what ultimately is. With this turn, philosophy reaches a limit. If certainty breeds unrest and suspension breeds calm, can thought still speak about reality itself without disturbing the soul? The next movement will answer, yes, but cautiously. Thought will rise again, not as dogma, but as orientation. In the next chapter, philosophy returns to Plato through a different door. Middle Platonism and Neoplatonism will seek what lies beyond appearances without collapsing into rigid claims. Spirit, not argument, will become the organizing principle. Reality will be approached not as something to be proven,
but as something to be participated in. If this series has sparked your interest and you wish to delve deeper into the topics discussed, I invite you to the source from which it originates. This book takes you on a journey from the 7 sages of antiquity through the modern revolution with Kant and Hegel to the contemporary philosophical dilemmas of the 20th and 21st centuries. In the book, you will find significantly more details than I could present in the film, as well as space for your own reflection at your own pace. It is this very book that forms the foundation of the entire series you are watching. If you wish to explore the history of philosophy in its full version, get it on Amazon. The link is in the description of this video.